The void of space had always been a canvas of predictability for the Zorn Collective. Centuries of galactic expansion had taught them that first contact followed a precise, choreographed dance. Lesser species would tremble, negotiate from a position of weakness, and ultimately submit to the superior technological might of the collective. Captain Jack Thompson knew exactly what the Zorn expected. He would disappoint them spectacularly. The Zorn diplomatic vessel, the Eternal Dominion, dwarfed the human diplomatic shuttle. Its sleek obsidian hull bristled with quantum-phase weaponry, energy signatures that could vaporize entire planetary settlements with a single calculated burst. The ship's communication arrays hummed with an arrogant frequency, broadcasting a message that had subjugated countless civilizations before humanity. Unidentified human vessel. The transmission crackled, the translator rendering the alien language with cold precision. You are required to power down all systems and prepare for immediate integration into the Zorn Collective. Resistance is mathematically improbable and strategically futile. Inside the shuttle's compact bridge, Thompson's team exchanged knowing glances. Lieutenant Rebecca Martinez, the mission's tactical specialist, ran her fingers across holographic displays, her movements deliberate and calm. Chief Communications Officer David Wong monitored the incoming transmission, his fingers dancing across encryption protocols that would make most species' communication systems look like primitive smoke signals. Thompson's response was neither immediate nor conventional. He waited precisely 47 seconds, a duration calculated to demonstrate both respect and defiance. "Eternal Dominion," he began, his voice steady and devoid of any hint of fear. "We acknowledge your communication. Before discussing any potential integration, we require formal verification of your diplomatic credentials and a comprehensive review of your proposed terms of engagement." The Zorn command crew, expecting terror or immediate capitulation, found themselves momentarily stunned into silence. Their universal translation algorithms worked perfectly, yet the human response defied all predictive models. No species had ever requested documentation during a first contact scenario, especially when confronted with overwhelming technological superiority. Lieutenant Martinez subtly activated a series of passive scanning protocols. While appearing cooperative, the human shuttle was methodically mapping every quantum signature, weapons configuration, and potential vulnerability of the Zorn vessel. Each scan was wrapped in layers of algorithmic camouflage, making the data collection virtually undetectable. "Your credentials," Thompson repeated, "and a comprehensive legal framework for proposed interactions." The Zorn commander, a crystalline being named Vornak, felt something unprecedented ripple through its neural network. Uncertainty. Humanity was not following the script. David Wong began preparing a multilayered communication package. It would include not just diplomatic credentials, but a meticulously constructed legal document that referenced intergalactic contact protocols from 17 different juridical systems. Each reference was designed to create procedural complexity that would challenge even the most bureaucratically advanced civilizations. Vornak's communication system struggled to process the incoming documentation. What should have been a simple subjugation was transforming into an incomprehensible legal and strategic labyrinth. "We do not negotiate," the Zorn commander finally responded, a hint of desperation entering its transmission. "We integrate." Thompson's smile was razor-sharp. "Then this conversation is terminated until proper diplomatic protocols are established," he said, his finger hovering over the communication cutoff. The implications were clear. By refusing to engage without proper legal framework, humans were declaring themselves outside the traditional conquest paradigm. They weren't begging. They weren't fighting. They were forcing the Zorn to engage on human terms. In that moment, the first seeds of the Galactic Preservation Statute were planted. The human shuttle's quantum drive hummed to life, not in retreat, but in a calculated positioning maneuver that placed it in a technically defensible spatial configuration. Every movement was a statement. "We are here. We are prepared. We will not be intimidated." Vornak realized, with a sense of profound disruption, that humanity was something entirely new in the galactic ecosystem. They were not a species to be conquered. They were a variable that defied calculation. The Andromeda Research Facility floated in the cold vacuum of deep space, a testament to collaborative scientific ambition. Representing 7 different galactic civilizations, the research team had been working on what they believed would be the ultimate quantum weapon, a technology capable of instantaneously disrupting matter at the subatomic level. Dr. Michael Reynolds was not impressed. Where other scientists saw potential for destruction, he saw a catastrophic flaw that could unravel the fabric of space-time itself. The facility's main research chamber buzzed with exotic particles and quantum entanglement generators, each device representing billions in technological investment. Alien scientists from the Quarian, Nexus, and Centauri systems worked in what they believed was perfect harmony. They were wrong. Reynolds moved between holographic displays, his fingers tracing complex mathematical equations that seemed to dance and shift with impossible complexity. The other scientists watched him with a mixture of confusion and growing unease. Humans were still considered relatively new to advanced quantum research, yet Reynolds moved with a confidence that suggested he was seeing something they were not. "The cascade potential is exponential," he muttered, more to himself than to his colleagues. Dr. Lyric Thax, the Quarian lead researcher, approached with diplomatic caution. Her crystalline exoskeleton refracted the quantum chamber's soft blue light, creating a mesmerizing display of color and movement. "Dr. Reynolds," she began, her translator rendering her complex language into precise English, "our calculations show minimal risk of quantum destabilization." Reynolds looked up, a slight smile playing at the corner of his mouth. It was not a smile of arrogance, but of someone who had just discovered something profound. "Minimal risk," he repeated. "That's precisely the problem." With a few rapid keystrokes, Reynolds pulled up a 3-dimensional quantum simulation that made the other researchers take an involuntary step back. The model showed not just potential risks, but a cascading quantum failure that could theoretically unravel matter itself across multiple dimensional planes. The simulation was terrifying in its complexity. Most scientific teams would have taken weeks to analyze such a model. Reynolds had generated it in less than 3 hours. The quantum weapon was not just dangerous, it was an existential threat to the entire universe. "We need to shut this down," Reynolds announced, not as a request, but as a statement of absolute fact. Dr. Kathax and the other researchers began to protest. Billions had been invested. Years of research would be discarded. Political relationships between scientific consortiums would be strained. Reynolds was already working. His neural-linked interface began constructing a neutralization protocol that defied conventional scientific understanding. Where other researchers saw a weapon of ultimate destruction, Reynolds saw a complex system with exploitable vulnerabilities. Each quantum entanglement became a thread to be carefully unraveled, each potential energy cascade a mathematical puzzle to be solved. The other scientists watched in stunned silence. Quantum research had always been about manipulation and control. Humans approached it as a problem to be solved, with a creativity that bordered on the impossible. 12 hours later, Reynolds presented a complete neutralization strategy. Not a theoretical model, but a practical, implementable solution that would render the entire quantum weapon project inert without causing any collateral damage. The scientific community was speechless. Dr. Kathax realized something fundamental had changed. Humanity was not just another species to be studied. They were a force of intellectual innovation that defied traditional understanding. "How?" she finally asked, her translator struggling to capture the complexity of her emotional state. Reynolds simply shrugged. "Sometimes you need to stop looking at what something is and start understanding what it could become." The quantum weapon project was terminated, but something far more significant had been born, a new understanding of humanity's potential. In the cold silence of the Andromeda Research Facility, the universe had just witnessed a fundamental shift in scientific paradigm. Humanity had not just prevented a potential catastrophe. They had demonstrated that true innovation comes from seeing beyond the limitations others take for granted. The Galactic Council Chamber was a marvel of architectural engineering, suspended in a zero-gravity environment that symbolized the delicate balance of interstellar diplomacy. Holographic displays flickered with the accumulated political histories of 200 sentient species. Crystal spires and energy conduits created a backdrop of technological sophistication that had maintained galactic peace for millennia. Jessica Harper looked like she was about to demolish everything. Her tailored diplomatic suit, a deep midnight blue, was both a statement of human professionalism and a subtle challenge. While other diplomatic representatives wore elaborate ceremonial garments or energy-modulated environmental suits, Harper's attire was deceptively simple. Each thread was a carefully chosen piece of tactical communication. The Krelltax delegation occupied the central platform, their multi-limbed forms radiating an aura of practiced superiority. Ambassador Zornak, with his iridescent exoskeleton and 6 independently moving communication tendrils, had spent decades manipulating the Council's intricate political machinery. He would not be prepared for Jessica Harper. The matter before the Council. Zornak began, his translation matrix rendering his complex language into crisp, measured English, concerns the systematic marginalization of emerging species representation. The human delegation's recent claims of systemic inequality are both premature and unfounded. Harper's datapad flickered to life, not with a simple presentation, but with a multi-layered holographic reconstruction that made the Council Chamber's existing displays look like primitive children's toys. The first layer revealed economic transaction records spanning 2 centuries. Each connection, each financial link was meticulously traced, color-coded, and annotated. The Krelltax had no idea how deeply Harper had investigated. Premature, she repeated, her voice carrying a razor's edge of precision. Let's discuss the economic parasitism that has defined Krelltax interactions with emerging species for the past 3 galactic cycles. The chamber went silent. Her presentation began to deconstruct centuries of carefully maintained political illusions. Trade agreements that appeared fair were revealed as intricate systems of economic suppression. Diplomatic protocols that seemed neutral were exposed as mechanisms of control. The Krelltax delegation's communication tendrils began to retract, a visible sign of biological distress. But Harper was just getting started. Layer after layer of her presentation peeled back the sanitized history of galactic governance. She didn't just present evidence. She created a narrative that transformed dry economic data into a living, breathing indictment of systemic corruption. Ambassador Zornak attempted to interrupt. Harper's system automatically generated a comprehensive legal counter-argument before he could complete his first sentence. The holographic displays updated in real time, incorporating his attempted objection and systematically dismantling it. This was not just diplomacy. This was warfare. The representatives from other species leaned forward. Humans were supposed to be newcomers, barely understood. Yet here was Jessica Harper, methodically exposing political mechanisms that had remained unchallenged for generations. Each piece of evidence was not just a fact. It was a precision-guided intellectual weapon. The economic models she presented weren't just accusations. They were comprehensive reconstructions that showed exactly how power had been maintained through subtle manipulation. Trade routes, resource allocation, diplomatic access, everything was interconnected, and Harper had mapped every single connection. When she finally paused, the entire council chamber felt different. The very atmosphere had changed. "This is not an accusation," Harper stated, her voice calm and absolutely certain. "This is an invitation for systemic reform." The Krelltax delegation had been prepared for argument. They had been prepared for confrontation. They had not been prepared to be completely and utterly exposed. Ambassador Zornak's communication tendrils went completely still, a sign of total systemic shock among his species. Humanity had not just challenged the system. They had demonstrated an ability to see through it, to understand its mechanics at a level no other species had achieved. In that moment, The political landscape of the galaxy shifted, not through violence, not through technology, but through the purest expression of human capability, the ability to understand, analyze, and fundamentally reimagine complex systems. Jessica Harper had just rewritten the rules of galactic diplomacy, and she was just getting started. The Emergency Council session convened in the most secure location in known space, a neutron star-powered facility that existed between dimensional planes. Representatives from 200 sentient species gathered, their collective anxiety palpable enough to bend light. Admiral Thomas Reyes stood at the center of the chamber, his presence a stark contrast to the elaborate alien delegations. No technological augmentations, no exotic environmental suit, just a human in a simple uniform, carrying nothing more than a standard-issue datapad that looked almost primitive compared to the holographic interfaces surrounding him. The preliminary reports had been impossible to ignore. Humanity had not just emerged as a species, they had become a cosmic variable that defied all existing models of civilizational development. Dr. Eliana Marcos, the lead xenoanthropological analyst, began her presentation. Her holographic display shifted through a series of impossible data points that made even the most advanced alien scientists lean forward in disbelief. In the past solar decade, she reported, her voice calm and clinical, humans have demonstrated capabilities that challenge fundamental assumptions about technological, social, and adaptive potential. The display began to document the impossible. A quantum research project neutralized before it could become a galaxy-ending threat. A diplomatic confrontation that exposed centuries of systemic political manipulation. First contact scenarios that rewrote every known protocol of interstellar engagement. The Centauri Confederation representative, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline matrix, spoke first. They are unpredictable, the entity observed, its voice a complex harmonic that seemed to resonate through the facility's very structure. Unpredictable, Admiral Reyes interrupted, or simply unbound by the limitations everyone else accepts. Silence fell. The holographic displays began to show a comprehensive analysis of human problem-solving across multiple domains. Where other species saw constraints, humans saw challenges. Where established civilizations calculated risks, humans invented solutions that appeared to defy conventional logic. A technological breakthrough in quantum communication, a diplomatic resolution that restructured galactic political understanding. A first contact scenario that transformed potential conflict into a complex legal and strategic negotiation. These were not isolated incidents. They were a pattern. The Nexus Collective's chief strategist, a being comprised of millions of interconnected neural networks, projected a probability matrix. Green, yellow, and red zones represented potential human interactions across various scenarios. The matrix was almost entirely green. They cannot be predicted, the Nexus representative stated, but they can be understood. Dr. Marcos stepped forward, her presentation revealing the true depth of humanity's potential. It wasn't just about technological innovation or diplomatic skill. It was about a fundamental approach to existence that was utterly unique. Humans did not see the universe as a fixed system to be managed. They saw it as a series of challenges to be solved. The council members realized they were not dealing with just another species. They were confronting a cosmic wildcard that could either save or destroy everything. We cannot control them, the Quarian diplomatic advisor noted, but we cannot afford to lose them. Admiral Reyes allowed himself a slight smile. He understood the subtext of their discussion better than they realized. The proposed solution began to take shape, not a restriction, not a limitation, but a recognition of humanity's unique status in the cosmic ecosystem. The Galactic Preservation Statute would do something unprecedented. It would simultaneously protect humanity and protect the galaxy from humanity. Legal frameworks were drafted in real time. Diplomatic protocols were reconstructed. Economic models were reimagined. By the session's end, 200 species had reached an extraordinary consensus. Humanity would be granted a status unlike any other civilization in galactic history. They would be untouchable, not because they were the most powerful, but because they were the most unpredictable, the most adaptive, the most fundamentally dangerous. As the session concluded, Admiral Rice looked around the chamber. He saw fear, he saw respect, but most importantly, he saw recognition. Humanity had arrived, and the universe would never be the same. The official announcement came on a seemingly ordinary Tuesday, transmitted simultaneously across every known communication channel in the galaxy. No fanfare, no dramatic buildup, just a precise, clinical document that would reshape interstellar relations forever. Ambassador Jennifer Nakamura stood before the primary Galactic broadcast network, her posture radiating a calm that bordered on defiance. Behind her, a holographic display shimmered with the full text of the Galactic Preservation Statute, a document that was equal parts legal framework, philosophical statement, and subtle warning. "This is not a treaty," she began, her voice cutting through multiple translation matrices with crystal clarity. "This is a recognition." The statute was unprecedented in its complexity and scope. It wasn't just a law. It was a comprehensive reimagining of how a species could exist within the larger galactic community. The first clause was deceptively simple. No civilization could directly harm, manipulate, or attempt to subjugate human settlements, colonies, or individuals without facing total systemic consequences. But the implications were anything but simple. Total systemic consequences meant complete economic isolation. It meant diplomatic nullification. It meant that any civilization attempting to move against humanity would find itself cut off from trade routes, communication networks, and resource exchanges that had defined interstellar existence for millennia. The Krell-Tax delegation, still reeling from their previous diplomatic defeat, tried to find loopholes. Their best legal minds spent weeks analyzing every subsection, every potential interpretation. They found nothing. The statute was a masterpiece of legal engineering. Each paragraph was constructed with such precision that it anticipated potential challenges before they could even be conceived. Where traditional diplomatic documents left room for interpretation, this one closed every possible avenue of potential conflict. More than that, it did something truly revolutionary. The law didn't just protect humanity. It positioned humans as a critical component of galactic stability. Subsection 7.3 was particularly brilliant. It outlined scenarios where human intervention could be requested, or required, to resolve complex interstellar conflicts. The statute transformed humanity from a potential threat to a necessary stabilizing force. Admiral Thomas Reyes, watching the broadcast from a deep space research station, allowed himself a small smile. This was diplomacy as a form of strategic warfare. The economic implications were staggering. The statute included comprehensive provisions that essentially made attacking humanity an economic death sentence. Any civilization attempting hostile action would find its entire economic infrastructure systematically dismantled. Not through military force, not through direct conflict, but through the most powerful weapon humanity had developed: their ability to understand and manipulate complex systems. The Nexus Collective's analytical matrices went into overdrive. They ran millions of potential scenarios, searching for weaknesses, for potential points of exploitation. They found none. The statute wasn't just a defensive document. It was a living, adaptive framework that seemed to anticipate challenges before they could even be formulated. Most alien species saw the law as a form of protection for humans. The truly intelligent ones recognized it for what it really was: a sophisticated warning. "We are not asking for protection," Ambassador Nakamura continued in her broadcast. "We are offering a choice: coexistence or isolation." The broadcast ended, but its implications would resonate through galactic civilization for generations. Humanity had just rewritten the rules of interstellar engagement, and they had done it with nothing more than words, analysis, and an understanding of systems that bordered on the supernatural. The universe watched, and for the first time, The universe seemed slightly nervous. The Ventari Imperium had always considered itself the ultimate masters of covert operations. Their intelligence network was a labyrinth of quantum-encrypted communication channels, bioengineered infiltration agents, and manipulation strategies that had destabilized entire civilizations. They believed the preservation statute was nothing more than a challenge. High Strategist Krelax reviewed the infiltration plan. Decades of preparation had gone into this moment. They would not attack humans directly. That would violate the statute. Instead, they would systematically undermine human colonies through a network of proxy agents, economic manipulations, and carefully orchestrated disruptions. The target was the Mars Titan colony, humanity's most remote and technologically advanced settlement. Their first agent was perfect. A bioengineered infiltrator so sophisticated that it could pass every known biological, psychological, and technological screening. Genetic markers were flawless. Psychological profiles were impeccable. Communication patterns were indistinguishable from a standard human colonist. What the Ventari did not know was that they had already been discovered. Deep within the Mars Titan colony's security center, Colonel Elena Rodriguez watched the infiltration unfold with a calm that would have unnerved the Ventari had they known. The colony was not just a settlement. It was a trap. Every system was a layered adaptive defense mechanism that made traditional infiltration techniques look like children's games. Quantum encryption protocols that rewrote themselves in real time. Adaptive AI systems that could predict and neutralize threats before they could manifest. The Ventari agent moved through the colony's infrastructure, believing itself undetected. Each step was carefully monitored, not to prevent the infiltration, but to understand its full extent. Colonel Rodriguez's team was building the most comprehensive intelligence profile on Ventari covert operations in galactic history. Target is approaching critical infrastructure node, her lead analyst reported. A slight smile crossed Rodriguez's face. Let them. The infiltration continued. The Ventari agent believed it was making progress, accessing what appeared to be critical communication systems. What it didn't realize was that every single interaction was a carefully constructed illusion. Entire communication networks were fabricated. Infrastructure access points were elaborate honeypots designed to draw out the full extent of the Ventari's operational capabilities. When the moment came, it was devastating. Not through military force, not through direct confrontation, but through the most powerful weapon humanity had developed: information. The complete Ventari intelligence network was systematically exposed. Every covert operation, every hidden agent, every manipulation strategy was laid bare across galactic communication channels. The Ventari Imperium's entire intelligence infrastructure collapsed in less than 72 hours. High Strategist Krelax watched in horror as decades of carefully constructed operational strategies disintegrated. The humans had not just defended themselves. They had turned the attack into a complete strategic deconstruction of Ventari capabilities. More than that, they had done it without firing a single weapon. The Galactic Council received a meticulously prepared intelligence briefing. Not an accusation, not a request for intervention. Simply a comprehensive documentation of the Ventari's systemic attempts to undermine human settlements. The implications were clear. The preservation statute was not just a defensive document. It was a sophisticated early warning system that could transform any attack into a total strategic defeat for the aggressor. Humanity had just demonstrated that the most powerful weapon was not technology. It was understanding. As the dust settled, Colonel Rodriguez reviewed the final intelligence report. Every detail, every interaction, every attempt at manipulation had been carefully documented and analyzed. The Ventari Imperium would not recover from this defeat for generations, and they had done it all without technically violating a single clause of the preservation statute. The universe watched and learned. The Xenobiological Research Station hung in the delicate balance between multiple star systems, a neutral ground where species from across the galaxy came to truly comprehend the phenomenon that was humanity. Dr. Michael Chen stood at the center of the observation deck, surrounded by holographic displays that represented centuries of collected data. Unlike traditional scientific presentations, this was a living, breathing exploration of what made humans fundamentally different. The other species watched, and they were terrified. It wasn't humanity's technology that inspired fear. It was their approach to existence itself. Where the Quarian civilization saw a problem as a fixed mathematical equation, humans saw a challenge to be reimagined. The Nexus Collective approached challenges through collective computational analysis. Humans approached them with a blend of creativity, intuition, and relentless innovation that defied all predictive models. Humanity is not a species, Dr. Chen explained, his presentation shifting through impossible visualizations. It is a complex adaptive system. The holographic displays began to show something unprecedented. Not just human achievements, but the thought processes behind them. Each breakthrough was a window into a unique cognitive approach that transformed limitations into opportunities. The quantum research that prevented a galaxy-ending catastrophe. The diplomatic confrontation that exposed systemic political corruption. The infiltration defense that dismantled an entire intelligence network. These were not isolated incidents. They were expressions of a fundamental way of understanding the universe. Most species saw challenges as problems to be solved within existing frameworks. Humans saw frameworks as suggestions to be constantly reimagined. The Centauri representative, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline matrix, struggled to process the implications. Its computational models showed humanity as a constant disruption, a species that refused to be confined by existing understanding. Adaptation is not just a capability for humans, Dr. Chen continued. It is their primary evolutionary strategy. The displays showed evolutionary patterns that made traditional xenobiological models look like primitive sketches. Where other species developed specialized adaptations, humans developed generalist capabilities that allowed them to thrive in virtually any environment. Space colonies, deep-sea research stations, extreme planetary environments. Humans didn't just survive. They transformed these challenges into opportunities for growth and understanding. The research station's computational core worked overtime, trying to create predictive models for human behavior. Each attempt failed more spectacularly than the last. Humans were not just unpredictable. They were fundamentally unknowable. A series of case studies emerged. The Mars Titan colony's defense against the Ventari infiltration was not just a military strategy. It was a complex dance of psychological manipulation, technological innovation, and strategic patience that rewrote every known approach to defensive operations. The Galactic Preservation Statute was not a defensive document. It was a sophisticated system of engagement that transformed potential conflict into an opportunity for understanding. They do not see barriers, the Nexus Collective's chief analyst observed. They see potential. Dr. Chen's presentation reached its crescendo, a comprehensive visualization that showed humanity not as a species, but as a dynamic, adaptive system that was constantly evolving. Most species adapted to their environment. Humans reimagined the environment itself. The observation deck fell silent. The accumulated intelligence of multiple galactic civilizations confronted a simple, terrifying truth. Humanity was not just another species to be categorized and understood. They were a cosmic variable that could not be predicted, only witnessed. As the presentation concluded, Dr. Chen offered a final observation that would resonate through galactic research for generations. "We are not special," he said, his voice calm and certain. "We are simply unwilling to accept the limitations others take for granted." The universe watched. And for the first time, the universe seemed to understand that it had something truly remarkable to learn. The quantum anomaly emerged from the darkness between galaxies, a threat that defied every known law of physics and computational understanding. Massive research stations across multiple star systems went dark. Entire civilizations' defensive technologies simply ceased to function when confronted with its incomprehensible nature. Dr. Sarah Williams stood at the center of humanity's most advanced research facility, her team assembled from the most brilliant minds across human settlements. This was not a military operation. This was not a diplomatic negotiation. This was a problem to be solved. The anomaly consumed everything in its path. Conventional matter, energy signatures, dimensional boundaries. Nothing seemed to resist its progression. The Galactic Council's most advanced species had already submitted their most sophisticated analysis. They had found nothing. "It's not a weapon," Dr. Williams muttered, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that seemed to breathe with computational complexity. "It's not even a phenomenon. It's a system-level challenge." Where other species saw an unstoppable force, humans saw an unsolved puzzle. The research team worked with an intensity that bordered on something more than scientific methodology. It was a fundamental reimagining of how universal systems could interact. Quantum physicists worked alongside xenobiological analysts. Dimensional mathematicians collaborated with computational linguists. No boundaries, no traditional limitations. Hours turned into days, days into weeks. The anomaly continued its relentless progression, consuming entire stellar systems with a cold, mathematical precision that suggested something beyond random destruction. Most species had already begun evacuation protocols. Entire civilizations were preparing for complete systemic collapse. Humanity prepared to understand. Dr. Williams' team developed something that was neither a weapon nor a defensive system. It was a comprehensive understanding protocol, a way of not just analyzing the anomaly, but of communicating with its fundamental structural integrity. The Nexus Collective's computational cores ran endless simulations. Each attempt failed more spectacularly than the last. Their most advanced predictive models showed only total systemic failure. Humans saw something different. The anomaly wasn't destroying, it was trying to communicate. Traditional scientific approaches saw the quantum event as a threat. The human team saw it as a complex system seeking resolution. Each computational layer was deconstructed, analyzed, and reimagined with a creativity that defied traditional scientific understanding. Dimensional boundaries became conversation points. Quantum fluctuations transformed into communication channels. What other species saw as total destruction, humans saw as an unprecedented opportunity for understanding. Admiral Thomas Reyes watched from the primary command center. This was more than a scientific challenge. This was humanity's ultimate test. The solution, when it came, was both elegant and terrifying in its simplicity. Humanity didn't fight the anomaly. They understood it. A series of quantum communication protocols were developed that didn't just analyze the anomaly. They engaged with it, transformed it, showed it that the universe was more complex than simple consumption. 47 hours after the first detection, the anomaly stopped. Not through force, not through destruction, but through communication. The Galactic Council received a comprehensive report that was less a scientific document and more a philosophical exploration of universal communication. Humanity had not just stopped a threat. They had initiated a dialogue with something that existed beyond traditional understanding. Dr. Williams' final report was a masterpiece of scientific communication. Each paragraph was a window into a way of thinking that challenged every existing paradigm of scientific exploration. The universe is not a problem to be solved, her report concluded. It is a conversation to be understood. The research team stood together, watching as the anomaly transformed from a threat into something else entirely, a potential source of understanding, a new form of communication. Humanity had done what no other species could. They had turned the ultimate cosmic threat into an opportunity for growth. The universe watched, and for the first time, the universe seemed to smile.